Good evening and welcome to Hello China on Dublin City FM 103.2. This program is co-hosted by the UCD Confucius Institute. I'm Sam, and here in studio with me today is Xinyu. A few weeks ago we spoke about Hong Kong and gave some travel tips if you're considering visiting. This week we're going to go through some tips on the neighboring region of Macau. Obviously anyone considering visiting Hong Kong might have time to hop over. It's because it's very close. And we're going to start with just some of the history of the area. Xinyu, why don't you begin?
Sure. Macau, along with Hong Kong, is one of the two special administrative regions of the People's Republic of China. It was administered by Portugal for 442 years, first as a trading post and subsequently as a Portuguese territory. As we talked about in our last show, that Hong Kong was a British territory and it was handed over to China in 1997. And 2 years later, Macau was handed over to China in 1999. It was the first and last European territory in continental Asia.
And just like Hong Kong, Macau operates under the policy of one country, two systems, which means that the PRC's government is responsible for the territory's defense and foreign affairs. But Macau maintains its own legal system, police force, monetary system, customs policy, and immigration policy. So as a result, Macau participates in many international organizations and events that don't require members to possess national sovereignty. It's a founding member of the World Trade Organization, and it currently ranks 21st in the world for a number of tourists. It's a major tourist destination. In fact, we're going to go through some of the ruins and cultural sites that you can visit. We'll start with the ruins of St. Paul's.
Well, today the ruins are one of Macau's most famous landmarks. In 2005, they were officially listed as a UNESCO World Heritage Site. I'm just going to go through a little bit history of St. Paul's, just to let you know. St. Paul's was built from 1582 to 1602 by the Jesuits and was the largest Catholic church in Asia at the time. It was destroyed, however, by a fire during a typhoon in 1835, and the ruins were excavated from 1990 to 1995.
So now it's a great place to visit as a result of the excavation and restoration. It has what you'd describe as a Baroque facade, so it's rich in ornamentation, but it has classical Oriental characteristics as well. It became a symbol of Western culture combined in harmony with Chinese culture, which is so something that you see all throughout Macau due to the Portuguese occupation. In fact, Western medicine was introduced into Macau around 1584 when a Portuguese doctor started to use vaccinations to cure smallpox patients in China. As a result, St. Paul's College was the first Western university in Eastern Asia.
Well, apart from the ruins of St. Paul's, there's another must-see place, which is called the Ama Temple. It is actually one of the oldest and most famous Taoist temple in Macau. Actually, the name Macau is thought to be derived from the name of the temple. Have you heard about that, Sam?
No, I didn't realize that.
Well, it is said that when the Portuguese sailors landed at the coast just outside the temple and they asked the name of the place, the native replied them Ma Ge because they thought the Portuguese sailors were asking the name of the temple. So after that, the Portuguese then named the peninsula Macau. The temple has been well described in ancient Chinese texts as well as represented in paintings. In 2005, the temple became one of the designated sites of the historical center of Macau, and it's enlisted on UNESCO World Heritage List as well.
Okay, so international recognition right there.
Yeah.
If you want to take a break from the sites and maybe head indoors, there are the casinos, obviously. Now, Macau's economy is heavily dependent on gambling and tourism. It does include some manufacturing, but combined gaming, tourism, and hospitality account for a little over 50% of Macau's GDP. So the Casino Lisboa is probably the most famous hotel in Macau, hotel and casino. It's owned by the, I don't know how to say this properly, but Sociedad de Turismo e Diversos de Macau, so STDM. It's a company owned by Stanley Ho, who's something of a tycoon. In 1963, the government issued Stanley Ho a monopoly license for the gambling industry, which he held right up until 2002. So he built his original casino as 12-story tower in the 70s, and they've been adding extensions ever since. As of 2010, it has 2,362 rooms. Massive, massive hotel. Great place to visit. Nowadays there's a lot of competition though due to the monopoly license being rescinded. So you've got a lot of the big Las Vegas names have moved in. You've got the Wynn Macau, You have the Sands Macao, Venetian Macao, and of course the MGM Grand Macao. So there's a lot of choice, a lot of glamour, and plenty of places to stay. I mean, casinos always some people's idea of heaven, some people's hell, but you can certainly win and lose millions in Macau if that's your thing. Xinyu, you actually visited some of the casinos when you were there, right?
Yes, true, because I think we went there when I was in Macau. It's definitely one of the must-see places, as well as the ruins of St. Paul's and Alma Temple we mentioned just now. The security is very strict, I remember, and we had to go through a metal detector to go in, and also we had to be like above 20 years old. Luckily, I just had my birthday in June, and we went there in July, so kind of very lucky. And yeah, loads of security guards are all around the place, and you can see different gambling machines in there, and I just got excited immediately for no reason.
So many bright lights.
Yeah, and but I heard they play tricks when you gamble, so that you can't always win. It's kind of tradition in gambling kind of thing.
The house always wins.
Yeah. And they let you in like a little first, and then you lose much more.
Yeah, so I mean, stay away unless you got money to burn or you happen to be a pretty good poker player. If you want to take some time from the casinos, one thing we're definitely going to recommend is you go see the Macao Grand Prix if you are there at the right time. Obviously, the Grand Prix is actually the most famous annual event held in Macau. A lot of people would have heard of the Monaco Grand Prix. Macau is maybe a little smaller in scale, but still very much worth seeing. It's different in that they actually allow motorbikes throughout the same event as well as the cars. There's a few different races held throughout. The Formula 3 class is the most famous. Macau is known as one of the most challenging circuits in the world. So a lot of former Formula 1 champions raced there when they were younger, sort of a proving grounds. It's actually famous winners included Ayrton Senna, Michael Schumacher, David Coulthard, Ralf Schumacher, and Takuma Sato, who all went on to be champions in their own rights in Formula 1 and other. And it's also for the FIA World Touring Car Championship. If you're a fan of that, you probably know the final two rounds have been held at the Macau Grand Prix since 2005. It's known as the Guaya Race of Macau. The Grand Prix has actually been running since 1954, so it's a pretty well-established event. Even if you're not interested in motor racing or anything, as anyone knows, Grand Prix are pretty glamorous events. There's always a lot of entertainment going on, plenty to see, plenty to do, lots of glitz. So it's, if you can time your trip around the second or third week of November, which is when the GP usually falls, definitely worth going to see.
Yeah, well, I think apart from the tourist sites, the casino and the Grand Prix, I think for the tourists, definitely the climate, the money, the language, and transport are some of the things that you have to consider before you go there. So, Sam, can you tell our listeners a little bit about this?
Yeah, sure. We'll just do a quick run through. These are definitely things you should know. Climate, obviously, like we mentioned, Macau is right beside Hong Kong, so same climate. It's described as humid subtropical. So it's by our standards, it's hot all year round, but there are seasons. You obviously experience that yourself.
Yeah, exactly.
Depending on when you go, there will be monsoon seasons if you want to avoid that. The best time is probably sort of November through to February or something if you're an Irish traveller. Those probably be when the climate would suit you best.
Yeah.
In terms of money, Macau, despite its size, actually has its own currency. It's called the Pataka. It's pegged to the Hong Kong dollar, so the exchange rate will be the same. But if you're coming from Hong Kong or mainland China or anywhere else in the world, you do have to remember to exchange your currency. Language. Now, the official languages of Macau are Cantonese and Portuguese. So if you're coming from mainland China, you speak some Mandarin, no good. You experienced that, right?
Yeah, Mandarin doesn't work.
They don't speak Mandarin. If you're Chinese, you need to speak Cantonese. If you're coming from the West, unless you have Portuguese, you really need to have a travel guide or someone in your party who speaks one or the other of those languages.
Yeah.
English, you will find English speakers, but it's not widely spoken.
Mm-hmm.
Regarding transport, getting around, they have buses and taxis, but there's no metro. There's no real need because it's such a small place. For the tourists, they're the trishaws, which are hybrids between sort of tricycles and rickshaws. They're good for the sightseeing, good to see the place. There's ferries to and from the mainland, the Chinese mainland, and Hong Kong. So it's a nice way of maybe seeing some sights while traveling. And then if you're flying in, Macau has an international airport. Only one airport, so you can't get confused. It is an international one. Okay, so that concludes today's short segment on Macau. Just as a brief summary, so we went through the places you should visit, which include the ruins of St. Paul's, the Ama Temple, the casinos. Obviously, you've got a huge range there. The most famous is Casino Lisboa, as we mentioned. Go there for the cultural significance. Otherwise, you've got the Las Vegas competitors. definitely we suggest seeing the Macao Grand Prix if you can time your visit around that. It's just something really worth seeing. And then finally, don't forget to exchange your currency. Don't forget that you can fly into the international airport or take the ferry from Hong Kong or the mainland.
Yeah, this will actually be the last part of our tourism guide part. Hope you find them enjoyable and informative. In previous programs, we talked about Beijing, Shandong Province, Henan Province, northeast of China, Sichuan Province, Zhejiang Province, Yunnan Province, Tibet, Hong Kong, and last but not least, Macau. If you want to listen to any of the previous program, you can look it up on Facebook. We have every video on Facebook. Good luck on your travels to China.
You are still listening to Hello China MTN.
Hi, I'm Ruiyao.
How are you, Ruiyao?
Not bad.
Do you feel familiar with the song just now?
Yeah, absolutely. It was one of the pieces that I played at a concert last week.
Cool. What is the concert?
It was a fundraising school concert at Rockbrook Park near Rotherham. It was my first visit to an Irish secondary school.
So you were one of the players?
Yes, I played the clarinet. The concert was great. We have some really talented students. The standard was really impressive. I played 3 pieces myself, including a Chinese one that we heard. And it was particularly well received by the audience. Some of them came to me afterwards saying that it was an excellent expression of Chinese folk music.
Yes, that song sounds really Chinese. So I guess that must be a very unforgettable experience, right?
Yeah.
So, what is the song?
The name of the piece literally means variation on a tune from northern Jiangsu, and it was created by Professor Zhang Wu of our Central Conservatoire of Music, and is believed to be the first clarinet composition in China. Professor Zhang was experiencing rural life near northern Jiangsu province in the early 1950s when he introduced some Western technique and modified a melody of some traditional folk music and tried to depict a series of scenes in the countryside, and hence we get the music.
It's my first time to hear the music. Anyway, we'd better leave that for our break, and I think now it's the news time.
Yeah, fair enough.
So what do we have today?
What we have this week?
Yeah.
You know, Tian, China is adding an aircraft carrier to its naval fleet soon.
Not really. Is that the Ruiyao carrier which we bought from Ukraine in 1998?
Yeah, indeed. The photos of the carrier appeared on the website of Xinhua News Agency last week. The captions of the pictures cited a military magazine in Canada, saying that construction at Dalian shipyard would end soon and the carrier is expected to sail this year.
If this news is released by Xinhua News Agency, and Xinhua is essentially a state-owned news agency, so does this indicate that officials are no longer reluctant to make such reports public?
Yeah, to some extent they are not hiding the news anymore. When asked about the photos at a regular press conference last Thursday,